Well, everyone, welcome back to the Ground Grind with Andrew and Lance. This episode is all about free agency. We're going to start, though, with talking about our individual teams because we just love our teams. Love the Eagles, I love the Vikings, and there's been some contracts going around with our teams. So we're going to jump in with Lance first, talk about the Eagles with Saquon, with Bond, getting those new deals. So jump right in, sir.
Andrew, I feel a little sheepish about the fact that I have to eat crow because after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, you and I talked separately in a chat
Yes, we did.
about how I thought it would be a bad idea for the Eagles to re-sign Saquon Barkley to a contract
Cool.
extension.
Yep. Yep.
And
Especially for
then
more money.
it looked like the Eagles were not going to do that. And then in the middle of last week, I get a notification that they signed him to a 2-year, $40 million extension. That's like $38 million guaranteed. And
Mhm.
I'm getting ready to bust out the "We Are Now the 49ers" shirt because,
Well, difference is you won. They haven't
yes,
won.
I mean, that's good. The part that's kind of funny to me is like a lot of people are like, "We won the Super Bowl. Who cares?" Well, it's like,
I look at future too.
I'm not looking to do a Seahawks model. I'm not looking to do a Denver Broncos model. I'm looking to do a New England Patriots model where we go back
Yep.
year after year after year after year.
Yep.
And how does this move make sure that we go back year after year? I, Maybe Saquon proves me wrong again because I was not a
Hmm.
Saquon believer last year. So I just want to throw that out there that it's only fair. I didn't believe in him last year. So maybe he can
Hmm.
prove me wrong again this year and rush for almost 2,000 yards. But dude, this
Hmm.
looks like a very interesting, not Howie-esque move for the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Maybe there's
Because wasn't
factors I'm not
Saquon
aware
still
about.
signed this year?
He's still signed for the next 2 years. So now he's
Mm.
signed for the next 4 years. Although,
He is young
based
still,
on
but yeah, I get it. I get it.
but this is like going back to the Geno Smith thing, right? That we talked about previously. He's the
Hmm.
opposite
Hmm.
of Geno Smith. He's been heavily used. He's been heavily
Yeah.
relied upon all the way back to his college days.
Yeah.
So
And didn't he have a ACL and with the Giants? There was some big injury with the
yeah.
Giants.
So
So yeah.
this is a guy that's had a lot of use.
Hmm.
Dude, I don't know how scalable it is moving forward. It makes me nervous.
Hmm.
Because like I said, man, I am not going to get into Howie Roseman's comments about winning a Super Bowl this week, but he had very interesting way to describe winning a Super Bowl and what it's like winning the second time. But dude, now that we've tasted it twice, my whole thought is why can't we get back there again? Like why can't we do
Hmm.
this again? And
Yep. Yep.
yeah, there's still things to work out in the contract details. They're still being revealed. I'm happy for Saquon. I mean, don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
Andrew. He deserves the contract extension. He deserves it. He was he carried the team to the playoffs, and then
Hmm.
Jalen Hurts took over. I mean, literally, it was like they were pilot co-pilot, and then Jalen
Yep.
Hurts took over the controls and
Yep.
took them the rest of the way.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Um, but dude,
He's
I
already
don't
signed
know.
for 2 years. Why did you have to redo it? He's on
Or
a team-friendly-ish deal that you can continue to utilize to build your team. I don't know. I
or
don't think
why
I would
not
have
just
done that.
we just revisit the current contract? You know, like just
Hmm.
revisit it and give him more guaranteed money. That's fine.
Hmm.
Dig your pit for the next 2 years because you're already together. He's already proven his
Yep.
worth. If you want to increase each year by a couple more, but the way I read that contract structure, it's definitely going to put us on the hook for a couple more years afterwards, which
Hmm.
he's not a spring chicken. He's also not this old chicken either, but
He's right in
uh,
that middle range of, does he
uh,
have 4 more years? Maybe. Definitely 2 more years.
possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe part of this is how he's thinking. I don't want to lose another LaShawn McCoy. Maybe that's
Mm.
part of his thought process is that,
Mm.
we were so
Hmm.
good with LaShawn. Let's not let this happen again. Let's lock in now.
Hmm.
Because Saquon's no longer in the running back market. Being an offensive player of the year and winning a
Hmm.
Super Bowl, he's he's more than that. He's more than
Hmm.
most receivers in terms of his value. So I get that. So putting that to bed, let me get to the exciting news. The Eagles made the incredibly smart decision. of re-signing Zach Bond, and
Hmm.
I am thrilled about it. I thought it was hilarious, Andrew, how many people kept saying that Zach Bond was going to make like $10 to $13 million a year when the market has
Yeah, you,
clearly
you you
said,
sent that article, and I read that article the same day too. I was like, okay. I think the article was like what in the mid 30s total
yeah,
contract. I was like,
for
okay,
three
that's that's
years.
that's more than he's making now. But then it comes out he's making 51. Like, oh, you guys were way wrong.
I mean, but it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make
Hmm.
Zach Bond. Someone was going to pay that guy stupid money. Someone was
Hmm.
going to do it because well, we talked about this before, but there are dumb GMs out there, and the
There are
Giants
the
are
Giants, the
the
Browns,
prime example of exactly. So there's already a two-headed monster, and we can make that grow to at least 10 heads, I'm sure, in the NFL,
for
where just
sure. Jets.
already at three, Miami. Um,
Uh-huh.
people just make dumb mistakes all the time. So in my
Cowboys.
mind, this is what yeah, yeah. Well, that's an owner, so that's even a worse category. But the Jets are also in that category too. So,
Hmm.
but I mean, I just think it's crazy that people thought he was going to go for cheaper. And if I'm Zach
Hmm.
Bond, what I'm saying to the Eagles is maybe you get me for 15 million, but you're not getting me for 13. And if you're going to settle for
Hmm.
15 million, maybe I go to the market and see if I can get 20. So to me, the
Hmm.
$17 million number, I don't think it's an overpay. I think it
Hmm.
was fair. Maybe 16 million was like what I was hoping for, but you weren't going to get much better. The
Yeah, and
13 to
what's a
10
million gonna
million,
do? Yeah.
it's worth it. And especially with
Hmm.
Nakobe Dean being out, this was a good move. I
Hmm.
definitely applaud Eagles for keeping him.
Hmm.
So that's like looking at recent moves with the Eagles. Is there anything you want to touch on before we actually look at like some of the top end free agents, maybe from each of our teams?
So yeah, I like those moves as well for the Eagles. I don't know how much more cap space they have to keep the rest of their internal guys, like a Sweat, like a Becton. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can afford that while still adding pieces because you guys lost I mean, Darius Slay and James Bradbury weren't your stars anymore, but they are gone now. So you gotta depend on those two rookies, and you probably need one more corner, maybe two, just for depth because injuries happen and you can't really depend on only two guys. Found that out with Minnesota very well. But I like those moves. And I was shocked with that Saquon contract as well because again, he's already signed. He's signed for 2 more years. Revisit next year. That's when you do that. You don't have to do it now. I know how he loves to get ahead of the game. That's what he did with AJ Brown. That's what he did with Smith, paying them early before the market's crazy. But was the running back market going to get crazy this year? There's not a whole lot of legit running backs right now. But anyway, I can't argue Howie Roseman. He's done some phenomenal moves. He's built a really good team. And so I just got to trust what he's doing. I respect what he's doing. So it's odd to me, but he's much smarter than I am. So paid Saquon what he paid him. You guys got Bond back. We'll see what happens with the rest. But overall, you guys don't really need a lot anyway. If Becton leaves, yeah, you need a new right guard. If Sweat leaves, sure, you need another edge rusher. But you guys have drafted so well. I don't doubt what the Eagles are doing. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on to the Vikings, they do have a very interesting offseason. So the first big move they made was not tagging Sam Darnold. I thought they were going to tag and trade him. I thought there was value there, but the market said no. Okay, the market said no. I know they tried. There was lots of speculation that they were trying to shop him, but everyone said no, so they moved on. Now, the speculation, other than yesterday, but the past 2 days, that they are working to re-sign him. They really want Sam Darnold back. No, that's not true. Not true at all, because they're not going to be signing Sam Darnold to a 1 year, $25 million contract, is what he would require to keep. No, that's insanely stupid. If they kept him for another 1 year, $10 to $15 million contract, okay, I can see that, but it's not going to happen. He's going to make some money in the market. If there's like 5 teams that need a new quarterback, he's not going back on a 15-year deal. That's so stupid. Um, And so I was thinking, why are these guys saying that the Vikings want to re-sign him, build a team around him? There's interest on both sides. Sure, Sam Darnold wants to come back because he has a great infrastructure, but it's not going to happen. But
Mhm.
finally, the insiders decided to talk truth. I think it was Adam Schefter, I think it was, who was on a podcast and said that is a someone asked him, "What's the chance that Sam Darnold comes back?" He said, "Low." He said, "I do not see that happening." And then after that, with the Geno Smith trade, now there's lots of steam coming out that is um, not likely that he returns to Minnesota. And I was thinking, finally, you guys are speaking truth. Sam Darnold is not coming back. So that's the first domino to fall. I knew that for months now. After the, let's see, probably after the Lions game, I was like, yeah, he's not coming back unless he wins a Super Bowl. He's not coming back. And obviously he didn't. But the next big thing to fall for the Vikings was they re-signed Theo Jackson. Not a lot of people really know this guy. He was their fourth safety because they had Bynum, Harrison Smith, Josh Metellus as their kind of swing safety who plays linebacker, and then Theo Jackson. So they re-signed him to like a $6, $7 million year deal, like 16 and a half total, something like that, which tells me that he's going to be their starter next year. He's going to be replacing Cam Bynum. So I do not think they're bringing Cam Bynum back. They're going to let him. They've had internal talks. He's probably requiring too much money. And Minnesota's never really paid safeties, especially with the Kwesi era. So he's good. I think Cam Bynum's going to be in the open market. He's going to go somewhere else, maybe the Raiders or I don't know. We'll see where he goes. But that tells me that Theo Jackson's coming back and that they're going to try really hard to get Byron Murphy Jr. to come back. Because the two guys that were on their radar internally, Cam Bynum and Byron Murphy Jr. They have other guys, but they're just guys. Those two are the studs they wanted back. Cam Bynum's probably going to walk now, so they're going to try for Byron Murphy Jr. But there's been a report that says they are unable to extend him, so he's going to hit free agency. Since he's going to hit free agency on Monday, someone's going to offer him the bag. Someone's going to give him 19, 20 million, which is too much for him. I'm just going to say that. He had one breakout year last year. Before that, he's been good, not great. Last year, he had a breakout year, so someone's going to overpay him. He's probably more worth the 15 to 17 range.
Mhm.
And if he comes back for that, awesome, great. But I think someone's going to offer him like 19, 20. Like, I don't know. Again, the Raiders, they're looking for corners. So I don't think he's coming back. And then we have other guys like Aaron Jones. If he comes back for 6, 7, sure. But those are the big two dominoes to fall. And with us signing Theo Jackson, it already tells me Cam Bynum's not back. And this report that Byron Murphy is going to be hitting free agency, I don't think he's coming back either. So we're going to have 60 something million cap space to go shopping for corner, offensive line, and defensive line. And that's pretty rich in this free agency and draft. So
Mhm.
it's the right time to have those three needs for this free agency and this draft coming up because the draft is really deep in D line, has some good corners up there, and in free agency, there's some good O linemen out there. So I like where Minnesota's at right now. I would love to have Byron Murphy and Cam Bynum back, but they're just going to be too expensive. That's my thoughts on the Vikings right now.
I was just looking at it, Andrew, and I didn't even think about it until you started talking. But Kenneth Gainwell makes way too much sense to go to Minnesota.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
against that.
he's not gonna break the bank. That's someone that you could
Hmm.
absolutely get for, let's say, 3 years, 6 million,
Yeah.
or
Now, there's been
2 years.
speculation that we're looking at Najee Harris because the Steelers probably aren't keeping him. So there's names
Mhm.
out there, and the biggest thing is this draft. Oh my goodness, does this draft have some backs? It's like 30 running backs deep. So Minnesota's for sure going to draft at least one running back, possibly two if they trade down, which we'll get into that, but high chance that they're going to trade down, get a couple extra
Mhm.
picks, and then I can see them taking two rookie running backs. So, because there's a lot of good backs in this draft, man. So good,
Dude,
so much talent.
I I like the Kenneth Gainwell to Minnesota move. I mean, I
Yeah.
think they could get him for super cheap. I mean,
Mhm.
hear me out. KOC is not committed to the running game. He is Andy Reid
He's
1.0.
not. I know he's not. He needs to be more committed, but he's not. He's just
And
not.
so, I mean, at this point, you make one of two options. You can't draft Aston Genty if you're not committed to the running game. If you're drafting him, you are saying the running game is a
Hmm.
part of the Vikings' identity moving forward,
Hmm.
which could make sense with JJ McCarthy coming back. Maybe
Hmm.
you can implement some
Problem
things
is he's
to
not
do
falling
that.
to 24. He's not
Mm-hmm.
falling to 24. And we don't have the ammo to trade up. So Aston Genty's 99% off the board, unless something
I'd say
crazy
90%.
happens.
Not, I'd say
90? Okay.
90%. I think there's
Okay.
a chance he slips down. But I mean, I just think if that's your identity, right? I think Kenneth Gainwell
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense. I think it's a great move.
Hmm.
Um, he is definitely a reliable catch the ball, get down the field type of person. And I think that's
Hmm.
what they need. Um, Aaron Jones had some fumbling issues last year in key moments that you're like
And he had the big thing with Aaron Jones was this has been his whole career is he's not been an every down back where
every
he's
down back.
getting the bulk of the carries, getting 400 touches a year. That's not him. And we unfortunately leaned on him too much, and it showed toward the end of the year. First half of the year, he was great. Second half, his productions was slipping because he was hurt. He wasn't healthy and he was still playing because we had no choice. It was him or Cam Akers, and Cam Akers is a fine number two, but he's not going to really move the needle on offense. And so his production dipped. He was getting hurt. Now he's a year older, and there's been rumors that he's going to be looking for 7, 8 million a year still. I don't think Minnesota's bringing him back at that price. If he comes back for like five, awesome. We'll let you play one more year for five. That's cool. That's great. But Denver is another rumor that he's going to go to. They would highly pay him 7 or 8 because they're close. They feel like they just need a steady running back, and Devontae Williams is probably going to be available. Which hey, he can come to Minnesota. I like his game. But yeah, I don't see Aaron Rodgers coming. Aaron Rodgers, no, not Aaron Rodgers at all. But Aaron Jones coming back at 6-ish million, and he's not going to be our RB1 if he's back. He's going to be the guy that spells our rookie if Aaron Jones comes back. If we get like a Najee Harris, he could be our one and a rookie be the two,
Mm-hmm.
ramp him up, maybe change it toward the end of the year. But if
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Jones comes back, he's going to be our third down back, and our rookie is going to be on first and second. Because Aaron Jones does two good things really good still: pass protection, catch the ball in the backfield. So on passing downs, I can see him being in. And then on the getting hit running downs, let the rookie take those hits. I can see that happening if Jones comes back. But in the grand scheme of things, I think he is going to get offered a little bit more than what Minnesota wants to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he walks.
By the way, I don't know why, Andrew, I'm on a kick right now for looking at your team and seeing players that make sense. But Asante Samuel Jr., I
That
I
is
like it.
that is one of
I,
the guys I want us to look at for sure. Because again, I don't think
and
we're going to afford Byron Murphy Jr. And then I think two guys, DJ Reed and Asante Samuel Jr., both those guys make a ton of sense. And honestly, we have the money to sign both. We could get both those guys, DJ Reed from the Jets and Asante Samuel Jr. from the Chargers. Those three are outside corners, and we have Mekhi Blackman, who has potential. He was showing some potential in his rookie year. Then he tore his ACL last year at training camp, so he's going to be fully healthy because he got hurt in training camp. But he's an unknown. He has potential, but he's an unknown. But if you get DJ Reed and Asante Samuel Jr., you got two knowns, two really good players. I like that a lot. I think our key is the line, but
mhm.
cornerback is number two.
Remind me, Andrew, does I mean, I know Flores likes to blitz, but do they do a zone blitzing scheme or is it a man-on-man blitzing scheme?
So that's a we're getting into the weeds now. I like that. I like that. So what he wants to do is more man blitzes, but he did not have the personnel with these older cornerbacks who could beat in man, like Stephon Gilmore. He can only hold it for so long. Shaq Griffin can only hold for so long. They were more of a zone blitz last year, but he wants to move towards man blitzing. That's what he
Mhm.
wants. He just didn't have the personnel to do it. So with some younger corners that are really good in man coverage, they may pick up a really stud D tackle like Jonathan Allen. That's how you build that flow defense.
That's interesting because I think that Samuel is a better zone corner, but then it's also
That's
hard because
fair.
it's like I think Samuel was San Diego or Los Angeles's best corner last year. So it depends on I think how they use him. But if they bump him
And I
down to
think he got hurt
two,
last year too. He got hurt a little bit,
how
but
does
it
that
wasn't like,
look?
yeah, yeah.
I like
Yeah,
him.
I
I,
mean,
I
I like him too. I like him
he
too.
reminds me a
That's
lot of
my
his
with
yeah,
his dad.
he reminds me of his dad. Just the way he plays,
Yeah,
right? Like he'll come out of nowhere and
100%,
he's got the ball, he's running down the field the other way, he's getting 20
100%.
yards. I like that for Flores' defense. I
Yep.
think that could be I don't know, it depends on
Uh-huh.
the press, it depends on like what they want to do exactly, but
hmm I want them to go one of
man,
those two guys, DJ Reed or Asante Samuel Jr. I'm fine with either one because DJ Reed is a really, really physical corner. Like he will stay with you and ride you. He'll get flags, but I'm cool with being aggressive and toning that down a little bit as opposed to not being aggressive enough. I don't want that. So either one of those guys, I want Jonathan Allen. I want us to go after what's his name? Bakari, I think his name is, the left guard from the Ravens, because he is a swing guard and he's 27. He's got talent. Oh, I could go on and on about what Minnesota needs to do. We'll see what they do. But yeah, I love that Asante Samuel Jr. thought. He's one of my top guys I want him to get.
it's just really interesting looking at all the available free agents. By the way, on a different note, it feels like a down year for the market. I'm not blown away
Mm,
by the names that are available. There's a couple of good
yeah,
ones. I'm not saying there's not, but I'm not
yeah.
like this doesn't seem like a year to be like it doesn't feel smart to be super aggressive, which that's why I was kind of
hmm
mentioning Samuel because my thought is I'm wondering if people kind of like, sharks in the water circle around Murphy and
hmm
Reed and Samuel gets ignored. And if you're Minnesota, you
That's
jump in
100% fair.
early,
Yeah,
you get him at a
100%
far
fair.
better price.
And that's
And
Quasi style for sure. Because
and
look what we did with
and
Jonathan Bernard and Ben Geagle last year. They weren't
yeah, I
top
was
of the
gonna say Van
market.
Ginkel,
Yeah,
but
they weren't top of
solid
the market.
player.
They were like second tier probably, and
Yes,
that's
but he
where he
got
went
them day
immediately.
one.
So
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, that's
I,
Quasi style for sure.
I I'm locking it in, Andrew. I'm switching. I'm locking in to look for Samuel to go to Minnesota. I like the move. I feel
One
like,
difference is last year they were kind of pigeonholed with their cap they had, where they had to
uh-huh.
go that way. This year they
hmm
got money, so I can see them doing Moneyball on a few things, but they're at least going to make one big splash. I would anticipate that's on the line, a defensive lineman,
Oh,
offensive lineman. So I can
hmm
see them making a big splash there, and then, like you're saying, go a little bit cheaper on the corner with Asante Sam Jr. I'm totally cool with that, but they are making one big splash. I just don't know exactly where it's at. Is it a Milton Williams? We'll see. I don't know.
Oh,
Is it a
I
Macari
don't
from the
know.
Ravens? I don't know,
Uh,
but they're making one big move, and then a few of
yeah.
those secondary moves for sure.
I mean, man, I'm just looking at this and I'm because I like Mekhi Becton. I think he showed a lot of skill, but I don't think he
Mhm.
makes sense for Minnesota if you don't commit to the running game. He is not.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of
He's
sense either. Yeah, they are
he's
they should run the ball more, but they're going to be at most a 60-40 pass run split. That's at most. It's probably more like 70-30. But yeah, with that doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. But Will Fries from the Colts, that's a guard we're looking at, and there is legitimate speculation that they are interested in Will Fries. He broke his leg last year, but he's young, so he can recover from that, be fine. He's more of an all-around guard, pass and
mhm.
run block. So that's probably who we're looking at right guard. Um, but yeah, Becton doesn't make too much sense unless we wanted to change our philosophy big time, which with our personnel, we got receivers for days and we got JJ McCarthy who we want to swing to just fling the ball around. So
Mhm.
that doesn't make a lot of sense. We need more big guys to pass block than with Becton, who is fine to pass block, but he is a mauler. That's not what our offensive style is.
You know who could be really interesting? I'm just looking at is I've been hearing rumors that Isaac Seumalo, the offensive
Hmm.
guard for the Steelers, he used to play for the Eagles. I've been hearing rumors that he might be let go as a cap casualty as the Steelers try to kind of
Yeah,
reset. But
possibly. Yeah.
that could be someone,
Hmm.
if it's like, let's say, like we get past free agency and you get into like April time frame, things didn't quite work out. I could see him going over to Minnesota and
Hmm.
seeing what they can do because he's definitely I'd say he's like, balanced, pretty solid running, pretty
Yeah.
solid passing, but he's not going to be the type of Mekhi Becton where like you're watching it and all of a
Hmm.
sudden a player completely disappears. I
Right.
mean, that's not what he does, but he's solid. So
Hmm.
Um, that's interesting. Looking over to the Eagles side,
Yeah,
I'm getting ready for a sad free agency, man. Milton
really.
Williams is gone. He's
There's no way you can afford to bring him back because he's going to get offered the
I,
bag, even though he might not deserve it because he put up good
uh
numbers as a swing guy. Can he really take the full
the
brunt of all
full
the
role.
snaps? It's no one really knows yet. That's speculation. So, but he's going to get paid as a full role starter, and
I
there's
mean,
no way you
but
guys can bring him back.
he's not going to have Jalen Carter. He's not going to have Nolan Smith. He's
Exactly.
not going to have Josh Sweat. He's
Exactly.
not going to.
Is he going to thrive or is he going to fold? I am a little concerned of Minnesota paying that price. But we need something. We need some D tackle help. And if
I
they
see
went and
like
spent that money on him, I'd be okay
mhm.
with it. I wouldn't be thrilled, but I'd be okay with it because they're trying.
Minnesota could make sense because you have enough pieces around to make
Yeah,
it
on the
successful.
outside. Yeah.
Now, if it's like a Albert Hainsworth Washington style move where he's the only guy you get, completely overpay and expect to suddenly be amazing, you're going to be
It's a great
disappointed.
example. It's a great example.
It just won't work out. So I think that's
hmm
the part that I know he wants to get paid. I know he wants to get paid, and I understand it.
Yeah,
And
and he's young. He should get that big fat contract. He definitely should.
um, yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how that works out. I want him to come back. My guess is this is what happened. I think that the
Hmm.
Eagles just told him we're not going to even offer to you, and it's not out of like any selfishness or that we don't like you,
They just
but
know they can't afford it. Yeah,
yeah. And well, I mean, you don't want to be disrespectful. Like, what if you throw out, 2 years, 10 million? It's like, come on, be
that's
serious.
messed up. Yeah. And
So
what you
it's
guys will
better to
probably
just
do
say,
is in the third round, you'll draft another D tackle. That's going to be your next Milton Williams. That's probably exactly what you're going to do because you guys draft very well, very well. Give you credit for that.
do you know what a funny story about Milton Williams, by the way, with the draft? Maybe you're not aware of this, but
I'm
this
not sure.
it became a really popular video after the draft
Hmm.
for the Eagles war room with drafting Milton Williams.
What
Have you not heard
happened?
about the story?
I don't think
So
so.
so you know how like when you're watching it and like they're getting ready to make the pick and they're all like going around half fiving like yeah we made our pick, we're really excited about it. So like Howie Roseman's going around and bumping knuckles with everyone, and I can't remember who it was, but one of the people he goes up to knuckle keeps his arms crossed and like doesn't bump knuckles until like
It
after
wasn't
10
Sirianni, was it?
seconds. No, it was one of
Okay.
their other general or like front
Okay.
office people. But it
Gotcha.
was like so funny because like that's everything that stuck out. And people were like,
hmm
did they just make the wrong move? So it's like so
hmm
funny how fast forward, what, 4 years later, right after that draft, and man, did that work out. But crazy.
hmm
I can't remember the name of the guy. There's another player that the Eagles wanted. He's on the Detroit Lions. He's a defensive tackle, but that was the two
Oh,
people they were looking at.
is that
He
really
just signed a
long,
contract
difficult name?
extension. Yeah, I think he just signed a contract extension
Okay.
during the year last year. Um,
I'm not sure.
so anyway, but it's a funny story that I always think about,
hmm
is that crazy how good things worked out for them. Ali
Yeah.
McNeil,
Yeah.
maybe is that his name? I think it's Ali McNeil.
McNeil. Okay. Yeah, I recognize that name. Yeah, he was pretty decent for the
So
Lions.
yeah, I mean he's been pretty good. So I mean it worked out for
hmm
the Eagles. I'm happy for Miller. I'm happy for him
hmm
and for the life changing money he's going
Yep.
to get.
He won a Super Bowl. Now he's about to get paid. Yep.
The part that I'm like kind of confused about is like I don't know where Josh Sweat is at, man. Um,
Yeah.
I, if people look at just the Super Bowl and that's all they pay attention to, he's going to get paid crazy money. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem that I see with Josh Sweat is he is streaky. He reminds me a lot of Nick Foles on
hmm
the defense, where like if he is on, he
hmm
is on. He's going to sack your quarterback. It's going to be a fumble. It's going to be a game changing play. But if he's off, he's off.
He disappears.
One part that was interesting is I was listening to a podcast about the Eagles, and his ratio of sack to the pressures he's getting is like insanely high, which is not good. So that means
Yeah.
that he doesn't get more pressures than the sacks. Like he
hmm
needs that number to be up so that way you're
hmm
even making more of an impact.
Exactly.
It
Pressures are
narrows
huge.
the amount of success he has and the likelihood of
Yeah.
success.
Yeah, for
So,
example, for Minnesota, Jonathan Bernard was the opposite of that. He was like third in pressures created,
hmm,
and then he got like maybe I want to say like 12 sacks, which is fine. It's a solid number, but it's not up there with like the 18 to 20 that the top of the market gets. But he was like third in pressures. Pressures are legit in this league because you're getting the quarterback off their spot, you're making them throw a bad throw. That's one reason Minnesota led the league in interceptions. So yeah, I'm on board with that. Pressures are really important.
yeah, I agree with you. But again, I'm not trying to belittle Josh Sweat. He is the
A
MVP
really good
2.0.
player.
He is
Hmm.
the second place runner-up MVP. You know, those two and a
Yep.
half sacks, the fumble he had
Hmm.
an amazing game. It's just when I look at both players, right? It's very different positions and very different situations. But I think some people argue that Jalen Hurts is streaky, like in terms of like how much effect he has.
Mm.
Like, you know, sometimes he's really on, and then sometimes there's been games where he's got 100 yards. But there's intangibles that Jalen Hurts
Yep.
provides that Sweat is not providing the intangibles. Like there's times I remember watching Josh Sweat over the past few years where like I always talk about this a lot from defensive line experience, but defensive linemen sometimes can be very lazy or overly aggressive. And I'd say that that's
Mm.
Josh Sweat. There's
Hmm.
times where he has to have contain. He knows that he's the one that's outside and it's only him for
Hmm.
6 yards, but he gets so aggressive with thinking, I got this sack, I've got this fumble, or I'm going to get this running back in the backfield. And we end up giving more yards. Like I
Hmm.
just remember that happening from time to time. And it's like, oh, Josh, you can't make that mistake. Like you've got
Hmm.
to be disciplined enough to sacrifice those numbers and instead make sure that that play doesn't go for more yards. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's gonna be tough to weigh out. I probably someone's gonna pay him more than he deserves.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm torn on Mekhi Becton, man. I love the guy, and from a story standpoint, like to turn his life completely around, really,
Hmm.
really happy for him. I've heard he leans towards Philly if the money's right. I don't see it matching up. I don't
Yeah.
know. He's the one I'd say is most likely to stay, but let's say 40% stay. Whereas I'd
Okay.
put Williams at like zero. I mean, honest, let's say one, because you know we got to put
100%.
something there.
Yeah.
1%,
Hmm.
and then Josh Sweat at 10%. And if he doesn't get signed after a week, increase it to like 50%. I think that's
Okay.
possible.
Test the market.
But
It's not quite what he thought. Yeah.
I don't see that happening. Gainwell's probably gone, which I'm really bummed about because he has proven himself to be a really solid
Yeah. You're paying
1B
Saquon too
running
much.
back, and we just paid him more. So that's awesome of us. Um, I like looking around to seeing players that kind of make sense to me because I was thinking
Hmm.
about like, okay, where could we be movers? Where could we potentially look at?
How's your cap space for this year?
We've got probably like 15 to 20 million to work with. It depends on
Okay.
what you're looking at. It's
Yeah.
not
You
very
can get a couple
clear,
guys.
but I think Javon Hargrave could make sense with the
Come
reunion.
back. Come back home. Yeah.
And my understanding is Javon is still going to get paid a lot of money from this previous deal, so he won't need to like get a hefty deal. He could,
Hmm.
James
Hmm.
Bradbury esque type of agreement or contract or
Hmm.
Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousin. So I think he's a possibility. Here's an underrated one I've liked, and maybe it doesn't happen, but it kind of feels like it could make sense. But I don't think the Eagles are in love with Dallas Goedert moving forward. I think they look at last
Interesting.
year as a
Hmm.
deeply cautionary tale. But Evan Engram was just
He just
released
got
by the
released.
Jacksonville
Yes, he was.
Jaguars. He is
Hmm.
31 years old, but I mean, we talked about this before, but usage has to tie into age as well. And Evan Engram's overall usage is
Hmm.
lower than Dallas Goedert's usage has been to this point in his career. So I kind of like potentially this idea of maybe bringing
That's
Evan Engram in on
interesting.
like a 2 year deal if you can trade Dallas Goedert. But that's
Mm,
the key
hmm.
factor. If Dallas Goedert gets traded, I could see the swap out happening. So I feel like
That is
that's an
interesting.
area. Um, this is another one. This is like an internal free agent, but Isaiah Rodgers. Look for
Hmm.
him to potentially be paid as the number two cornerback in Philadelphia. Um, they
Okay.
released Darius Slay, which is Bummer. Feel bad for him. He's
Yeah,
definitely
he's
long in
he's
the
up there in
tooth,
age though. He's
but
probably
I,
going
I
back to
could
Detroit.
see
So,
I could see a swap out there. I mean, that to me could make some sense. I don't like any of the other guards. I would not sign Joey Bosa. I've heard the rumors, but no, like
oh
that's a
yeah,
firm
he's
no
going to
for
require
me.
too much money.
Um, yeah, I just no. I mean, I'm just looking through here to see if there's anyone else I can think of, but I don't know. I saw the Evan Engram's release, and I was like, I could see it. I could see the
Yeah.
matchup. There
Hmm.
have been a couple of reporters in Philly that are insisting that maybe the Eagles trade for Kyle Pitts, and I don't see it.
Hmm.
I don't
I would say the Chiefs
don't.
doing that first.
Yes, I think that that's very. But I mean, dude, Noah Gray is a great tight end.
He's good. He is. Yeah, he's good.
I cannot wait for him to be the number one. I mean, I just feel like
Hmm.
he reminds me of Dallas Goedert, waiting in the wings for Zach Ertz to leave, type of thing. Like I think when he
Yeah.
leaves, he's even better than people think he'll be. I just think he's
Hmm.
been that consistent. But yeah, I think that's it. I don't expect the Eagles to be major players. You did, I think, mention to me, right, about previously Laudry from the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, because he just got released, and that's if you guys don't sign Sweat back. If you sign Sweat back, then
Yeah.
that's a no deal. But if Sweat leaves, that makes sense because he's going to be, think he's 30, 31, so he's not going to require a lot of money, but he's still going to be
Mhm.
productive for the next couple of years. So that just made
I
sense to
think
me.
I think Laudry is actually I think he's younger than that.
I thought he
He's
was 30.
28. He's
Oh,
28, but he'll be
wow.
29 this year.
Okay. Well,
So,
there you
I
go.
mean, he's got a little upside to him.
Hmm.
But the Eagles firmly, I think the Eagles will not be they will not be signing any players that can ruin the comp pick formula. I think they want Sweat to go sign for big money. And then same thing with Milton Williams. You still there, Andrew? Well, while Andrew's figuring out things on his end, just digging into it with Landry from the Titans, but we really just like the fact that how good he's been as far as with the amount of pressures he's gotten. But I mean, like Andrew could speak to this. Hey, Andrew, you're back on. Good to see you.
I'm back. Yes, some internet problems. A little hiccup.
You're good. I just was filling in the gap with the fact that really like the fact that Landry's been averaging about 10 sacks per year for the past 3 years.
Yeah,
And he's
he's pretty
still,
consistent.
so I mean, I could see that, but that's it for the Eagles. I mean, honestly, I think that the best thing the Eagles can do is tame your appetite.
Hmm.
Tame your appetite, tighten that belt, don't get overzealous. This doesn't look like a good free agency class for the Eagles.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think you'd be more likely to way overpay for people that you should not pay for.
Yeah,
Um,
just go to the draft. You guys draft really well. Just go to the draft.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, one person I was just thinking about, I forgot as a free agent, but I am fascinated to see where Nick Bolton ends up going
Mm,
from the
mm,
Chiefs
hmm
because he's
hmm
gone. There's no way the Chiefs are bringing him back after all the moves they made. And if they really are
hmm
in the market for Ronnie, he is out.
hmm
So, but dude, Nick is 25. That is
It's young.
a lot of value left.
Yep.
If the Eagles didn't re-sign Zach Bond, then that could have
That
been
could
an
have been the
interesting
guy.
switch.
Hmm.
But I could totally see why they didn't want to get rid of Zach. I mean, he was amazing. He was amazing last year at linebacker for us. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, I think that that's it for me. As far as for other things, I'm kind of surprised that some people have Stephon Diggs so high in Houston. That doesn't feel right to me. Coming
Yeah.
off of a major injury,
Yeah, he's old.
he didn't look that good last year. I mean, he wasn't
Hmm.
bad before the injury, but I wasn't like blown away by his numbers. Um,
Hmm.
he was okay. Um, I don't know. I just don't see who's going to want to pay that. He's going to want to get paid, like just based off of Stefan's personality, unless he like has a come
Yeah.
to Jesus moment and like humbles himself and That
Hmm.
doesn't strike me as Stephon. I mean, he pushed his way out of Buffalo, which in hindsight, man, I think that
Hmm.
was a mistake. I think he should have stayed. I think, but maybe Buffalo wouldn't want to keep him because of the dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. They had a little falling out there. Yeah, the only other guy that I saw on top of the list that was interesting to me up until Minnesota re-signed Theo Jackson was Javon Holland. Because that kid is really talented. He's a top of the line safety on the market, so he would require top of the line money. And Minnesota probably wouldn't have gone that route, but Brian Flores was on the team when they drafted him.
Mhm.
So that kind of made a little sense. And that kind of safety, Javon Holland can do everything. He can go back in coverage, go after it. He can go north or south, whichever way you need him to go, toward the line of scrimmage or back up. He's just so talented and is young. He's like 26 years old. So that would have made a little sense if Minnesota really wanted to make that big splash, because just have that utility for Brian Flores saying, all right, Javon, you're over here, now you're over there, now you're over there. That would have been phenomenal. I would have loved that move. But they really like Theo Jackson internally. He's been showing out in training camp like every single year. Just had guys ahead of him that were just a little bit better or that had contracts a little bit higher, so they had to. But yeah, that Javon Holland was interesting to me. I'm interested where he goes. I don't know what makes all the sense right now, but he's going to get paid. And there's other guys on here on the free agent list that used to be really good players at least. Um, like Tre'Davious Ward, corner from the 49ers, but he kind of struggled last year and he's getting up there in age. Your guy, Hassan Reddick from the Jets, he's available. It'd be funny if he came back to the Eagles after you guys got a third round pick for him. That'd be
You,
hilarious.
you know what I've heard is interesting, and I've never been able to confirm this, but there are several Eagles reporters indicating their belief that Hassan Reddick harmed the chemistry of the Eagles locker room,
Huh.
which
Interesting.
is so interesting. It's only a few reporters, but they are some of the best reporters in Philly. And the way they
Hmm.
phrased it is that the Eagles front office feels he
Hmm.
harmed the chemistry of the team. They've never said that he did,
Hmm.
but the perception is. And it's kind of interesting, because he gets traded, he goes to the New York Jets, and then has that absolutely dreadful contract dispute, which just
Hmm.
looked bad. It looked
It
really
did.
bad.
It
Um,
did.
I, I'm just struggling to see. Like, I know that NFL.com has him ranked as the 18th overall. Who's going to want this guy? Like in the first round. I mean, maybe 2 weeks later, after he's
Hmm.
come down and like he's been humbled or embarrassed by the fact that he has no
Hmm.
market, maybe someone takes him. But I don't see this being somebody that people are like, we have to sign him. He's 30 years old. He had a terrible
Hmm.
season. He literally pushed his contract dispute, ruined like the current contract he had. It made it even worse.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and now he's leaving the team. Just all around bad vibes, man. Bad vibes.
Yep.
When the Eagles made that trade, they got so much crap for making a bad deal, but they got a third round pick
That's
out
a
of it.
great deal. Yeah.
They got a third round pick.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. Also, quarterbacks is going to be another one too that'll be interesting, but not so much because it's a good class, but because back to that appetite thing. There's quarterbacks out there. I
Hmm.
wouldn't call them good options, but they
Hmm.
are out there. Um,
Yeah,
in
the
fact,
first domino is going to be Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold and Aaron Rodgers, probably at the same time, domino kind of a thing.
I just what's left with Rodgers? I don't see
Just a name.
those rumors, but like, why would you want him? I don't know, man.
I
I'm
don't know.
struggling with it. Struggling with
Yeah, you
understanding
sent me
what.
that report this morning that there's a dark horse candidate, the Vikings of Aaron Rodgers coming to. No, 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 no. I'll say it again, no. Absolutely no. That's drama to the extent, to the extreme that no one wants, especially when you got a locker room as close intact as the Vikings do. Kevin O'Connell's a
Mhm.
phenomenal coach. We don't want that. Nope. Even if this was 10 years ago and he was in his prime, we're good. We'll ride what we got. Thank you. for your offer. Now Aaron Rodgers probably absolutely wants to come to Minnesota because of the
Hmm.
weapons, the team, win 14 games. Hey, they're a playoff contender. Maybe I can get them over the top. Nope. No, thank you. I'd much
You
rather
know,
ride with Daniel Jones as the starter
hmm hmm
than Aaron Rodgers as a starter. Much rather have that.
Well, I mean, it's just the baggage, right? It's the
Hmm.
baggage. It's, you know who absolutely deserves him, Andrew? Cleveland
The
Browns.
Giants. Well, yeah, either one of those teams.
The Cleveland Browns. I mean, if you don't have like one bad person is enough at quarterback in your locker
Hmm.
room, then two certainly will make the situation much better.
Hmm.
Um, they just deserve each other. They deserve the drama, you know. That way they can blame each other for the situations. And yeah, he honestly,
He
truly just needs to retire.
he does. He needs to go home, go in his dark cave and never come back out. But the only team that would sort of make some ish sense is the Steelers because the head coach could kind of keep him in
Oh,
line to an extent because he did with Antonio Brown, he did with Le'Veon Bell. That's the only one that could make possible sense. But it still wouldn't be enough to make him a Super Bowl contender. They'd just be 10 wins again, get bounced in the first round of the playoffs.
that doesn't. Yeah, that
Everywhere
sounds like
else, everywhere else, he's going to be a divisive poison for that team, for that franchise, for that locker room. Like there's rumors the Giants are looking at him. Sure, go after him, win 4 games again. Or the Seahawks might be interested. All right, sure, go after him, destroy that locker room you're trying to build. No, just no. Go away. Go away, Aaron Rodgers. No one wants you.
well, hey, I'm gonna lock it in right now. If Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers, Mike Tomlin will be the head coach of a new football team the year after.
Next year, I could be on board with that. I could be on board
I,
with
I
that.
just, I mean, if they really were dumb enough to sign him, you reap what you sow, man. You reap what
Hmm.
you sow. And what a perfect lesson to just put you guys totally over the top. They will have their first losing season with Mike Tomlin.
And hey,
Uh,
wherever he goes, Devontae Adams is going to go. So
oh,
if Aaron
dude.
Rodgers goes to Steelers, then Devontae Adams is going to go to the Steelers.
Yeah, that's just more baggage. But,
Hmm.
misery loves company, Andrew.
It does. It does. If I was going to predict where these quarterbacks go, the ones that are available, um, I think I see Sam Darnold making sense for the Seahawks. That makes sense because they have some cap space. They have some players on that team, and they're trying to build something new. So that makes sense. They probably pay him 35 to 40 in that range. And then I could see Justin Fields sticking around with the Steelers. They try to run it back with him. I don't think Wilson's back. I could see Russell Wilson being the backup over in Las Vegas, the backup Geno Smith. How ironic would that be?
Oh, what an awkward locker room that would be.
It would. It would. But go back to your boy Pete Carroll. It makes a little bit of sense. And then I can see the Giants being the ones left out having to draft one of these quarterbacks. I can see the Titans and the Giants drafting Ward or Sanders, and then Kirk Cousins getting cut and going to the Browns. That's kind of what I see happening in this quarterback landscape that we have right now.
I'm interested to see where Jameis Winston ends up. I feel like that's
I
the
like him.
sneaky
I
that's the
like
sneaky
Jameis
good
Winston.
pickup. I I
I
I
like
mean,
him.
but it's not he's keeping good for your locker room. Like that's the part I'm looking at here is like your
Hmm.
backup quarterback can't just be a backup quarterback. They need to be good for the chemistry of your team. They
Hmm.
need to be someone that makes the team better, helps all players be able to look at how they can be better because the quarterback should understand the offense and be able to explain how each player could do a better job to make the team more successful. I
Hmm.
mean, you should be able to do that. Coaches or quarterbacks should be coaches in training. And I think that
Yep,
Jameis Winston
absolutely.
has that demeanor. So I
I like
like it.
it. Yeah, I like him a lot. I know that the Colts are saying that's going to be open competition, so maybe Jameis to the Colts.
Oh, that I like that move. You don't think it's Daniel Jones getting another 5 year,
He might.
$100 million contract or
Not
something?
that. He's not getting that. But Daniel Jones to the Colts does make sense. I would rather him take a full year in quarterback rehab university with the Vikings and be back up to be back up to JJ. But if he gets offered any kind of money, he'll probably take it. So I could see the Colts reaching out and signing Daniel Jones. That does make sense. And then Minnesota can sign like a Gardner Minshew as their backup or something. or if they want to continue the quarterback rehab university. There's a name that got brought up in one of the podcasts that I was listening to, and I said, you know what? I kind of like that because KOC has been bringing in these quarterbacks that have been cut, deemed busts, and he's redeveloping them, getting them back on
Hmm.
board.
Hmm.
There's a certain Jets quarterback that they drafted high. He didn't pan
Hmm.
out, and then he got
Hmm.
cut, and I think he went over to Sean Payton and the Broncos. You know where I'm going with this?
I do know where you're going with
Mr.
this.
Zach Wilson, being the backup, going to QB University, learning to be an actual quarterback in a good organization, and then letting him go out in the wild and see what he can do as a starter again. That's what KOC
In-
does.
Interesting. Interesting. How many years does he have left on his contract with is he a free agent this year?
I think so. I think they signed a 1 year deal.
Wow, he is an unrestricted free agent. I did not
Hmm.
realize that he was a free agent this year. That is so man, I'm having a hard time unseeing that possibility. But my
Yeah.
big question on
Yeah.
Zach Wilson, we've talked about this before, and it's different from Sam Darnold.
Hmm.
His maturity was a problem.
100%. 100%.
And
I agree with that.
being with Aaron Rodgers, I don't think is helpful. I think that's a model
No.
of what not to
Yep.
do. And
Hmm.
I know that Aaron Rodgers liked to talk about how much he trained him up and made him better, but I don't like the
No.
combo there. And here's the question I have. Did going to Sean Payton push out some of those bad tendencies? Did he
Yeah,
humble
maybe.
himself? Is he more accountable? Is he going to work
Hmm.
harder? I mean, we talked about this before, Andrew, but my opinion was when Zach Wilson came out of the draft or for the draft,
Hmm.
he left too soon. He left too soon. I understood
Hmm.
why he
He needed
left,
1 more year.
but
Hmm.
I honestly, I really wish that friends of players were doing this more and telling them, I know you think the money's there. I know you think it's a lot,
Hmm.
but you're a quarterback. Your real value is getting in a second contract. That's where
Hmm.
you need to make your money, the second contract, because hopefully you do good enough, like Geno Smith, who's going to sign another deal with Las Vegas, from what I've heard, and get another
Yeah.
long term deal. I
Hmm.
mean, he's getting more value than someone, oh, I don't know, Jamarcus Russell. Like the epitome of what not to
Hmm.
do. And that's basically what Zach Wilson did. He rushed into the NFL, got his first contract, and
Hmm.
flopped. He flopped so bad. It just, I don't know. I
Yep.
think it takes a lot of humility. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts could have left Alabama and gone straight to the NFL. Someone would have taken him. They would have said, there's enough talent, there's enough ability.
Hmm.
But Nick Saban, who I don't like, but I'll give him credit on this, told Jalen, you need to transfer, you need to go somewhere else, you need to work on your skills.
Hmm.
What's he do? He goes to one of the best offensive coaches in the country and has an
Hmm.
incredible season.
Yep.
I just,
Heisman
so
winner.
hopefully Zach Wilson decides to up his game, be more serious.
Yeah. Yeah. And going to KOC would get that in him. He's probably one of the only guys that could get that out of him if that was in there at all. So that
Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense. That makes if Dalen Jones releases to the wild and goes is the starter or competes for the starter for the Colts, which does make some sense, then
mm-hmm.
yeah, bring on Zach Wilson for a $4 million backup. And because Dalen Jones would require $10 million to back up, so we'd save money there anyway. So I
That's
can see
such
that
an
making
expensive
sense.
contract. Well, and the
Yeah.
difference to me is how competitive you are in a losing game at that point. Because I don't know
Hmm.
if Daniel Jones is going to win games for you. He might keep you in the game. But,
Yeah.
Wilson kept the Jets in some games last year or a couple of years ago.
I mean,
They,
honestly, the record wasn't that different from Zach Wilson being the quarterback to Aaron Rodgers.
I know.
It was like the same record.
Yeah, well, the Jets deserve all the success that they've enjoyed
Mhm.
these past couple of years. I'm happy for them. I hope that they
Yep.
continue to have just as
Now,
much success moving forward.
they did make the right move with their coach. I like their coach they hired. I like Aaron
Agreed.
Glenn. I respect him, but their ownership is still a problem. So,
I mean, they do have potential to change. The fact that I really think that they would have kept Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Glenn is like, no, I'm not
absolutely.
coming if he's staying.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what it came down to. I don't think Woody wanted to get rid of Aaron Rodgers because by
Hmm.
getting rid of him, he's having to admit he was wrong. which is never fun.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
embarrassing. You paid him way too much. You gave it too much capital. You signed his posse to terrible deals, and now you got to get rid of them too. But
Yep.
that locker room
And
needs to be
it was
cleansed.
hilarious because I heard that they were trying to see if they could trade Alan Lazard. I'm thinking, really? You think someone's going to trade for Alan Lazard?
I mean, they're probably
What?
thinking in their head, well, we did. Oh, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This free agency is going to be a ton of fun, though. Starting Monday, oh, there's going to be so much to talk about. Our next episode is going to be thick of just lots of stuff, players moving teams. And I can't wait till we get into our power rankings, like per division, like who's
mhm,
going where, who do you think's going to win the division by after the draft and all that. It's going to be so much fun, man. It's only beginning. I can't wait for
exactly.
Monday.
Same, same. It's one of the best weeks of the year.
I think
Best
it's
weeks of
even
the year.
I like the start of free agency more than training camp, even more than like week one sometimes, because that is
Yeah.
just so much fun. It rivals the playoffs. There's some playoffs
Mm,
that are kind of clunkers, but the week of free agency, oh, so much fun.
yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I think that's all from my end. So this was good.
Same
A lot of
here.
things we covered. So
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot more coming in the future. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time whenever free agency starts, and we can dig into these real contracts instead of just speculation.
thanks, everybody.